Until My Last Breath. Chapter 2. By Magthaline Mano. As usual, Leo was sent out by his teacher for not doing his homework. He stood outside his classroom in the colonnaded terrace and he had a look towards the courtyard down. There his gaze got attention towards Laura. A smile crept across his face seeing her. He thought she's super cute in red as well. He adored her smile and laugh from far. During lunch break, he moves towards the canteen and bought a big-sized candy for Laura. He moves towards Laura's classroom and he peeped his head inside while standing beside the door. His lips curved into smile seeing her stuffing the food like a puffer fish. He moves besides her and taps on her shoulder. She raised her head and again her sapphire eyes bore into him. Seeing him, she grins cheerfully. He smiled and knelt down besides her to her height while she was sitting in her little desk. He wished her, "Wish you many more happy returns of the day." Saying so, he extends the big candy towards her. She took it but her lips twitched in sadness. She apologized to him as she had no candy to give him. He said that was okay and smiled at her and introduced himself as Leo. She gave back her adorable cheeky smile and introduced herself as Laura. Saying so, she asked him where he was during break time as she came for him to his class and found him nowhere. He apologized to her and told her that he was in boys' room that time. She exclaimed him naively whether there was any room like that. Boys' room. He ruffled his hairs thinking of what to answer and left without saying anything, giving a smile back at her. The next day, she strode towards Leo's classroom with a box of sweets as her mom asked her to give it to him. James gave a evil grin seeing her back with sweet box. He skidded to a stop besides her and asked her for whom she was waiting. She replied that for Leo. James thought for a moment and told that Leo was his best friend and he would give it to him if she gave. Her brows arched in doubt. He realized that she was eyeing him with suspicion. He tried to snatch the box from her. She holds onto the box as much as she could. As a result, the box unwittingly fallen on the floor and the sweets got spilled. An awkward stillness reigned for a moment. Tears dripped from her eyes. He blinked at her. All of a sudden, she commenced bawling uncontrollably. James got his jaw taut and he hushed her down. He clucked his tongue with impatience. He comforts her and he told her that it was her mistake. If she had given him when he asked for it, it wouldn't have been wasted. Hearing his statement, she screamed "Mama" in between her sobs with choked voice. He asked her to leave in loud tone, gritting his teeth. She got frightened and took her baby steps towards her classroom while sobbing in between. That's when Leo came towards the classroom and he darted towards her when he noticed her tears. Laura saw Leo, her sapphire eyes glimmered with tears. She ran towards him and hugged his waist, resting her head on his chest. He got distraught. He gently pats on her back as she suffocates while crying. He knelt down besides her and inquired her what happened to her. She told him about the chubby boy. Seeing her recounting him, James scurried away. Leo saw him and gritted his teeth in anger. He gazed at her and sighed sadly. He wiped off her tears with his hanky. He told her to punch him if James teased her once again. She spelled punch and asked him how to punch. A smile crept across his face looking at her innocence. He taught her how to punch someone while moving his hands swiftly. She in turn told him that her mom told her not to fight with anyone as it was a bad thing to do so. She left out a sigh and told her, "Police beats thief, right?" Likewise, It's nothing wrong to clash against bad guys. She blinked at him and told him that we were not police to beat someone. He ruffed his hairs with irritability and asked her whether she gonna cry after getting bullied by him every time and told her not to come to his classroom in search of him again. He told her, "I don't like someone who's crying a lot," and left from there without turning back at her. She left behind staring at him with tears. The next day morning arises, Laura came to his classroom with a box of sweets again. James veered his gaze towards her and he turned his back. He snubbed her. She saw him with a band-aid on his nose gifted from Leo as a result of bullying Laura. She extends the sweet box towards him. He looked at her in disbelief. She told him with a smile that it was for James, not for her friend Leo, and informed him that her mom asked to give this to him. He smiled at her. He took it from her, conveying his gratitude, and he called her cute while caressing her cheek. Leo looked at the duo with fury in his eyes. He walked past her, snubbing them. Laura called Leo from behind. His lips curved into smile without her notice. His heart fluttered when she called out his name in her cute voice. He turned back sternly with his raised eyebrows and he asked her what. She extended the candy which he gave it to her on her birthday and told him to take it back as he didn't like her, with tears welled up in her eyes. He got mad at her. He scoffed at her to give that candy to that pudgy mammoth like she gave before. Saying so, he left inside the classroom. Laura got upset. James knelt down beside her and asked her not to get upset and bad-mouthed Leo as bad boy. Laura punched on his cheek when she heard him. She in turn replied that her friend was not a bad guy and punched him on his chubby cheek. She left the place holding back her tears. James didn't mind it and he went inside his classroom with a smile crept on his lips towards the sweet box. Leo heard what she said and felt bad for scolding her. He went to her classroom during lunch break to seek apology and stood in front of her. She looked so sad and gloomy. He smiled at her weakly and told, "I deeply apologize, Laura." Her gaze swung upon him and she told him that she couldn't control her tears all time. He says, "That's okay, you need not control your tears. I'm sorry for my behavior earlier." Laura said that but he didn't like crying people. He chuckled at her and says, "I don't like crying people. But if it's my friend, I don't have any issues. And I like my friend dearly." Saying so, he pats on her head affectionately. She raised her head to see him and her sapphire eyes bore into his. She hugs his thighs gaily when she was seated in her chair. He holds her safely with a smile reaching his heart. To be continued in the next chapter. Thanks for listening, friends. Please do subscribe for more videos.